In this video we will be talking about Kelvin, which is the SI unit of temperature, and we're gonna talk about the history of the temperature, and that is why I've written here the history of temperature part 1, because this topic is too long and it will take quite some time to explain it all. So I'm gonna chop it down into two parts. First will be about the history of the temperature, how human beings came to measure the temperature, and then part 2 will be about the Celsius, Fahrenheit, and Kelvin. So in the part 2 we're gonna talk about Kelvin. In this part we will only be talking about the history of temperature. So let's get started, shall we? So as we know that in our daily lives we cook food, and when you get sick you measure your temperature using a thermometer. So usually the average temperature of human body is 37 degrees Celsius. So how do we measure that temperature? This was important to humans even before the modern times. So as we know, without proper temperature our food wouldn't taste good, and even these electronic devices, for example like your stainless steel watches or any smart devices that you carry with you, those electronic components, the silicon or all the other metals, are extracted by melting them at high temperatures. So how do you measure those high temperature? Is that is how is the reason why we felt the need to create a unit to measure temperature properly. So this is the part 1. So part 1 will be about the history of temperature. So let's start. So in the ancient times, about 2000 years ago, in ancient Greek, the Greek engineer Philo of Byzantium, also known as Mechanicus, invented the device his own thermometer, also known as thermoscope, back at that time. So let me just write it down. Philo, I'm just gonna write Philo Mechanicus because it's easier to remember. Ancient, let's have this heading, shall we, which is ancient Greek, which is about 2000 years ago. So who was the person? The Greek engineer Philomechanicus. So Philomechanicus actually created a device that contained a hollow a hollow sphere filled with air, and there was a tube attached to it, and that tube was connected to a pitcher that contained water. So just for convenience, let me just draw a a rough diagram. So we take about a hollow sphere, and then I'm gonna try my best to draw a picture. So hopefully this is roughly a picture. Don't mind about my drawing. So there is a tube here. So, and that pitcher contained water. So this sphere contained air, and the pitcher contained water. So the idea was that the air would expand or contract based on the temperature, and that would increase or decrease the level of water in the pitcher. So that was the first working mechanism for measuring a temperature roughly. That was about 2000 years ago by the ancient Greek. known by the Greek engineer Philomechanicus. It's just a simple method, convenient method for measuring temperature, but not so accurate. Just a rough device. So next we're gonna talk about the ancient Rome. Let's go through ancient Rome. So in ancient Rome, the about 2nd century AD, the Greek-born Roman physician made and used the thermometer, which had 9-degree scales, and these scales consisted of one, four, four 9-degree scales total, and four degrees was for hot, 4 degrees for cold, and then a neutral degree point. So these markings were not actually based on actual temperature amounts, rather they were just different different levels for measuring hot and cold. So this was the working of a thermometer, of a thermoscope device, which had reading scales on it, which 9 total degrees, and which from 4 degrees was for hot, 4 degrees for cold, and a neutral degree for in the middle of it. Just like the ancient Greek, rough a rough device, but convenient, but not that kind of accurate. So next we'll be talking about the the Galileo thermometer. Galileo thermometer. So this is actually the Galileo thermometer, as you can see here. Yes, this is the Galileo thermometer here. So as you can see from the name, you might be thinking that Galileo invented this thermometer, that's why the name is Galileo thermometer, but actually it's not. Galileo did not invented the thermometer. It was actually invented by Accademia del Cimento, the early scientific society known at that time of Florence, a city in Italy. So write it down. Invented by Accademia del Cimento. Which was the early scientific community society of that time. So the idea behind the Galileo thermometer was simple. It was based on the densities. So let me explain it to you. Let's just zoom this picture a bit more. So I think that would be enough. So it was based on the densities, on the densities. So this is the whole device that was used to measure the temperature. So here we have hollow tubes, not hollow tube, the way these were filled with water, and they had a different colorings. So you can actually guess which the tube was of which temperature reading. And here we also have metal tags here, which also had written in temperature readings of it. So the these little tubes were filled with water with different colors, and then they were closed, they were sealed. As you can see here, they were sealed, melted and sealed off, and then their densities were adjusted by these metal tags, by attaching these metal tags which also had readings written on it. So they were inside this big tube, which I know you might be thinking this is water, but this is not water. This is actually an organic compound, which can be kerosene, or which was the I'm sorry, the organic compound which was ethanol and kerosene. So this was filled with water, and the big tube was filled with ethanol kerosene. So which was ethanol kerosene. So when the temperature changed, it changed so first of all, why use ethanol or kerosene instead of water here? So ethanol kerosene was the perfect organic compound, because they varied, that they changed their densities more with respect to the temperature, that they were more effective in changing their densities. And with respect to water, water took some time to change its density. It was more, the ethanol and kerosene were affected more of, their densities were more affected by the temperature. So that is why they chose ethanol and kerosene. So when the density of ethanol kerosene changed, increase or decrease, and because of that increase or decrease in the density of ethanol kerosene, these tubes, these little bulbs here, would just rise or sink because of the temperature. Because of the temperature, it changed the density of ethanol kerosene, and because of that, these tubes would just rise up or sink down, and that is how they made the temperature. So let's just put that picture over there, back to its original place. So next we're gonna talk about the thermometer. So this was back to the times when the temperature was when the thermoscopes were normally used for the environment, for measuring environmental temperature. It wasn't used for any practical terms. The real practical uh, area that came for using the thermoscopes was in the field of medicine. So in our daily lives, when we get sick, we take our temperature readings by using the thermometer, and about 37 is the average body temperature. So in the field of medicine, so I'm just gonna write medicine. So in medicine, in 1612, let me bring this picture here. So this gentleman here, sent his name is Centorio Centauri. So this gentleman Centorio Centauri, in he devised his own thermoscope at that time, to use it in the field of medicine. So it was just, let me just draw a rough diagram of it. So it also considered of a hollow sphere. So this is the hollow sphere, and then we're gonna have, oh, let me just erase it and just draw so here we have a tube, a glass tube, vertical glass tube attached to the hollow sphere, and here and in its base, the cylinder, it had water. So there was water in it. And also the main thing is that they are credited mainly, the Centauri is credited for using the thermometer because of the scales he introduced. So there was also scales in it, there were readings, so he can very accurately read the temperature measurements. So that is how he found out that the patient has either a high temperature or his temperature is average. So it had readings here. So in this sphere, the patient would either hold the sphere, he would put hands on this sphere, or just blow the air on this sphere, and as of that the air expanded or contracted, and it will change this reading, this water on the tube, and it showed a reading. So that is how he measured the temperature of his patients. So at in 1638, so let me just, this person over here, this gentleman over here, his name is Robert Flood. So Robert Flood in 1638 also made this same thermometer, the thermometer of this same mechanic. So, and he also used this in the field of medicine. So they are both usually credited for using thermometer in the field of medicine, and introducing also these scales in it, so they can measure the temperature accurately. So Robert Fluke was Italian, and Centauri was English. So, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I just made the opposite of it. Centauri was Italian, and Robert was English. So just write it down. And Robert Fluke was English. So they are both usually credited for the invention of thermometer and using it effectively in medicine. So that is how this thermometer worked. And there are some, I've researched a bit. So there are some say that it was water, and some say there were organic compounds, which both of these compounds, both of these are well suited when you are trying to measure temperature. So organic or any organic compound like wine, they used also wine, and at the same time they also used water. So wine or water, they both used it. So I'm just gonna put both gentlemen aside along with this rough diagram. So, and then in 1654, in 1654, we have this gentleman right here. Just gonna write it down. The Grand Duke of Tuscany, Ferdinando II. So he was the one who invented a sealed glass thermometer. So he invented a sealed glass thermometer. So what do you mean by sealed glass thermometer? So Ferdinando might have discovered that the temperature was also affected by air pressure. So what he did was he sealed the whole device, like sealing, which meant, so here we have the device that that Centauri and Robert Fluke created. So as you can see, the whole base here, the which is exposed to air. So what he did, he sealed both ends of it, so neither outside of the air cannot affect the whole measurement of temperature. So he sealed the whole device, so it cannot be affected by air pressure. And that is how he measured temperature with more accuracy, as he found out that the air pressure was also responsible for temperature, for affecting temperature readings. So I think, so this is it. This is just a short introduction to the temperature, which is the history of temperature part 1. So I think it's 20 minutes have gone by, and if I started explaining about Celsius, of Fahrenheit, Celsius, and then Kelvin, it would take about 1 hour of a full video. So I'm just gonna stop it here. So this is just the rough history of temperature. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the thing is that with all of these improvements, with all of this Galileo thermometer, and then the sealed glass thermometer, and the contribution of Centauri and Robert Fluke, there was still no universal scale to measure temperature, as every temperature had its own unique readings, and the different temperatures were just, their readings of hot and cold were just based on different regions of their respective summer and winter seasons of throughout the year. So there was no universal scale for measuring temperature of that time. So in part 2 we will talk about Fahrenheit, Celsius, and then Kelvin. Why Kelvin is the SI unit of temperature. So I'm just gonna leave it here. So I hope you have enjoyed this video and found it informative. So next we will talk about Celsius, Fahrenheit, and then Kelvin. So thank you for watching. If so, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'm gonna post videos more frequently, and gonna try to make short videos short as possible, because long videos, it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, and it really becomes boring for the viewers as well. So next video we'll talk about the next will be history of temperature part 2, and hope you guys found it video informative, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.